But it says Prince Harry may claim to despise the media, but he got very flirty with a reporter via text from the very same newspaper he's now suing.
Or man, if Prince Harry loses this whole thing because of some text that dropped of him macking on the journalist, I just can't even.
Charlotte Griffiths has been very open about her private relationship with Harry, the movie snuggles, the weekend naughtiness, and this makes it even more crazy.
And then you try to sort of get that sorted, and you've lost. You've absolutely lost. It's there. The judges read it. The lawyers have read it. You can't get away with it. It's absolutely ridiculous.
But we have this new evidence that's come in of Harry literally flirting with one of these reporters who's like, I don't know her, Mariah Carey style. He's calling her like lovey names.
The fun for me is the stupidness of this dude thinking it was a good idea to take someone he had a fling with into a court of law and accuse her of illegal journalism.
Picture this. Dropping millions of dollars, burning through years of your life, and risking every bit of your reputation just to sue a woman you once called sugar. That's exactly the move Prince Harry just made, and now it's blowing up in the most public way possible. On the final day of his trial against the Daily Mail, things didn't just go wrong, they completely exploded in that courtroom. We're talking about a full-on collapse right in front of a judge, with receipts laid out for everyone to see. Stay locked in, because what went down in London this week is being called one of the wildest self-sabotage moments in royal history.
The fling that the Mail on Sunday's editor-at-large, Charlotte Griffiths, has long privately revealed she had with Prince Harry has now emerged in public. On a disastrous final day of the court case between the Duke of Delusion and the Daily Mail, a series of intimate, personal, and highly embarrassing Facebook messages between Mr. Mischief himself and Ms. Griffiths were revealed in court.
By the time this wraps up, you'll see exactly why Meghan Markle is reportedly beyond furious. And honestly, for once, you might even get where that anger is coming from. Now let's rewind for a second, because the backstory matters big time. Over the past few years, Prince Harry has been on a loud, non-stop mission against the British press. He's labeled journalists as criminals, called tabloids toxic, and made it clear he sees the media as dangerous. He's built this image of himself as the one royal bold enough to stand up to what he calls a corrupt, predatory media system. The same system he believes tore his family apart and pushed his mother toward her tragic end. That storyline has been the foundation of everything. His book Spare, the Netflix series, the speeches, even his legal moves, all built around one idea. The press are the villains, and Harry is the victim. That's the deal he's been pushing. And right at the center of his lawsuit against Associated Newspapers, the company behind the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, was one very specific claim. Harry stood in a British courtroom, under oath, and said he had zero friendly relationships with journalists. He said he didn't hang out with them, didn't talk to them privately, didn't build any kind of personal connection.
The Prince Harry said that he found out Charlotte Griffiths, the editor-at-large of the Daily Mail, Mail on Sunday, he found out she was a journalist. He cut off contact, having met her just once. But it seems that that's not the case.
No, there's things that they've both written that go on for 2 months.
They had love letters. It was movie snuggles and G-strings.
Yes, and what can we be very naughty next weekend? You know, all that.
According to him, any private details published about his life had to come from illegal methods. We're talking phone hacking, private investigators, shady surveillance. That was the whole argument holding his case together. And then everything flipped. On the final day of the trial, the Daily Mail's defense team dropped something huge. They revealed a series of Facebook messages between Prince Harry and Charlotte Griffiths, a journalist who works for, of all places, the Mail on Sunday, the exact paper he's taking to court. Now pause for a second, because this part matters. Before those messages came out, Harry had already told the court what his connection to Charlotte Griffiths was, or at least what he claimed it was. He said he barely knew her. He said they might have met once. He insisted there was no personal relationship at all. Now here's where it gets messy. The messages themselves tell a completely different story. It all kicks off in late 2011, when Harry finds Charlotte on Facebook, and he reaches out first first, not the other way around. He sends her a message introducing himself, and in court records, he literally writes, "It's H, in case you were confused by name and picture." She fires back, calling him Mr. Mischief, and he clearly loves that energy. From there, the conversation takes off. They start talking about a crazy country house weekend they both went to, racing down motorways, staying out all night, living wild. Charlotte signs off as CG with multiple kisses, and the tone is already way more personal than anything casual.
So he's crazy. He's done that stupidly, and it won't...
In court, in front of a judge.
Yes. Well, he won't get any money anyway because he's made so many lies about what's happened and the people who are waiting to get money. The judge has made sort of words like something like, "It's not how you feel, it's what you definitely know is true." And that sort of thing is very important because Harry's just talking about what he feels and it's all wrong. But actually, you've got to provide the narrative exactly right.
And Harry, he's not holding back at all. His replies are warm, familiar, and way too comfortable for someone he later claimed he barely knew. Then it gets even more interesting. Just weeks later, Harry calls her Sugar, and in another message, presented directly to the judge, he writes, "Miss our movie snuggles." Movie snuggles with a journalist from the same newspaper he spent years calling a criminal operation. That alone raises serious questions, but it doesn't stop there. These weren't one-off messages. They kept talking for months. They discussed mutual friends, made plans, joked about shared moments, and even referenced inside jokes. Harry asked if she'd be at certain events. He signed off with rows of kisses. At one point, he even said he wished he had gone to a party specifically because she was there. Let's be real. This is not how two people act if they only met once at some random public event. This kind of back and forth, it screams familiarity, comfort, and an actual connection.
That's what's currently happening. Now, I guess this trial's now wrapped up. The judge is going to take some time and come up with his verdict, but as evidence came out today, apparently flirty messages from Harry with a journalist came out.
And this is where things go from awkward to seriously damaging. Harry's entire legal argument was built on one simple idea, that the only way journalists could have gotten private information about him was through illegal methods. Why? Because according to him, he didn't have normal personal relationships with any of them. But these messages completely tear that argument apart. They show that during the exact time frame of the lawsuit, Harry was actively socializing with a journalist from the very newspaper he's accusing. Not just casually either. This was consistent, personal contact. He shared his private phone number. He showed up at the same parties. He moved in the same social circles. And most importantly, he was the one reaching out and keeping the connection going. That changes everything, because now there's a clear, totally legal path for information to travel. No hacking, no spying, just normal conversations between people who know each other. Think about it. When you're chatting at parties, texting about weekends, joking about shared moments, that's how details slip out naturally. No conspiracy needed. And here's the twist that really hits hard. It opens up the possibility that Harry himself could have unknowingly been the source of stories about his own life, just by talking freely with someone he trusted in his circle. Now add this on top. Even before these messages came out, the judge had already flagged issues with Harry's case. The burden of proof was on him to show the information was obtained illegally, not on the newspaper to prove it wasn't. And from early on, the judge reportedly wasn't convinced that burden was being met. And then these messages dropped, and just like that, whatever credibility Harry had left, gone. Completely wiped out in a moment that played out right in front of the court. But this doesn't just stop at embarrassment. The situation gets way more serious when you look at the legal side of it. In the UK, giving false testimony under oath is considered perjury, and that's a criminal offense. Legal experts watching this unfold have pointed out that the gap between what Harry claimed in court and what these messages show is massive.
Yes, that's right. He's a fool. He's an absolute fool, but he's done this several times. He keeps going. He might try and go back and take another case about this as well. You know, he doesn't seem to think sensibly. I mean, anyone would know that if you had that sort of writing from a girlfriend who lasted 2 months, which is a time, not just one.
This isn't something that can easily be brushed off as "I forgot." The messages are detailed, consistent, and stretch over time. They show a connection that was clearly ongoing and comfortable, not some quick, forgettable interaction. And now here's the part that's got people online going wild. There have been reports for for a while that Meghan wasn't fully on board with Harry taking this legal route. Sources close to them have said she wanted a different path, one focused on building their future in America, growing their brand, and moving forward, instead of reopening old battles with the British press, which she reportedly felt were keeping Harry tied to a past he needed to move beyond. Harry moved forward with it anyway, and now the situation has flipped in the most public way possible. Picture this: Meghan sitting in Montecito while her husband's flirty messages with another woman are being read out loud in court and blasted across headlines everywhere. That's not just awkward, that's global level exposure.
So I think that he'll be in great trouble, and I can't see him getting any money at all.
This legal action against the Daily Mail has been a hot mess for Harry, hasn't it? It's been a public relations dumpster fire because the guy's been in the dock, he's been emotional, he's been ranting and raving about how the press treat Meghan, and it seems that what he says and what actually happened are two very different things.
And then there's this detail that's got people really talking. Meghan has openly shared that she calls Harry H as a personal, intimate nickname, a small but meaningful part of their relationship story. It showed up in their Netflix documentary and has been repeated in interviews as part of how they present their bond. But here's the twist. Charlotte Griffiths was already calling him H back in 2011, years before Meghan was even in the picture. Now, legally, that detail might not matter much, but for a couple whose public image is built on a very polished and carefully told love story, that kind of overlap hits differently behind the scenes. And that's not even touching the movie snuggles messages.
But what's interesting about this is a journalist that he claimed he only met once at a party, and when he found out she was a journalist, he never spoke to her again. But the text messages seem to paint a different story. Sure, it looks like they hung out more than once, and they were far more romantic than he led on.
Now let's talk about Charlotte Griffiths for a second, because her role in all of this isn't simple. For years, she's been seen as fairly supportive of Harry and Meghan. In media circles, people noticed she didn't go after them the way others did. In fact, she sometimes defended them when criticism got intense. Now the backstory starts to make a lot more sense. Charlotte never went public with these messages. She didn't sell her story, didn't chase attention, and didn't try to cash in on her connection to Harry in any obvious way. For over a decade, she kept quiet. By most accounts, she stayed completely professional and never exposed what was clearly a personal connection. But everything changed when Harry's legal team dragged her into the case. By accusing journalists of illegal behavior, he effectively pointed the finger in her direction too, suggesting that people like her were part of something shady.
So he's got a sort of secret way of getting more money. So I don't feel sorry for him even about
And who
that.
are these sort of shadowy forces that are
I can't remember
him?
the name of the man. He's a multi-millionaire.
So he's got, you think the Sussexes, they've got
yeah.
benefactors?
Yes, he's got people who look after him. And Meghan, I think, would do her charm act and say how much helping they need. And
Wow.
At that point, she had no choice. Once her name was tied to those claims, she was required under legal disclosure rules to provide any relevant evidence. And that's when the messages came out. And that sequence? It really stands out, because in trying to prove his case, Harry ended up exposing one of his own most uncomfortable secrets. By going after someone who had stayed quiet for years, he turned a former trusted contact into a key witness for the other side. Take a step back and look at the bigger picture, because this goes way beyond just Harry and one journalist. What this trial has revealed is a major contradiction. On one side, Harry has built a public image as someone targeted and harmed by the press, but on the other side, these messages show him actively moving within media circles. He was sharing his private number with journalists, showing up at the same parties, building friendly personal connections with the exact kind of people he later criticized in public. That contrast is hard to ignore.
Going through these text messages, which were disclosed to the High Court, it's part of his privacy claim against the Associated Newspapers Limited, publisher of the Daily Mail, Mail and Sunday, suggested that the pair work on closer terms than the Duke had indicated. He told the court in January that he only met Miss Griffiths once at a party and cut off contact the next day as soon as he realized she was a journalist. The 11-week trial ended on Tuesday with the barristers making closing submissions yesterday. The ruling will come at a later date. But these messages show the Duke seemingly struck up with a friendship with this reporter earlier.
What this has exposed is a legal strategy that either went seriously wrong or was built on selective memory, pushed way too far. At some point, it starts to look less like a mistake and more like someone convincing themselves of a version of events that doesn't fully line up. And here's the thing, the British tabloids do have a long history of controversy. No one's denying that. But this case is showing that the relationship with the truth might not be one-sided after all. Even Harry's own book, Spare, included a line saying some events were told as he remembered them, not necessarily exactly as they happened. At the time, people brushed that off as a normal disclaimer. But now, in the middle of this trial, that line hits very differently. It starts to feel less like a formality and more like a warning sign. The judge hasn't made a final ruling yet. And yes, it's still possible Harry could win certain parts of the case. Legal outcomes can be unpredictable, and there's always more complexity behind the scenes.
Imagine Elton John, all these people lose because Harry lied about his correspondence with a journalist at one of these parties, showing that he has no recollection of who he was talking to. That he clearly doesn't know what he was talking to, who he might have given information to, because he's randomly given out his number to girls at parties. This doesn't bode well for the Duke. And you got to remember, this is a huge deal, this case, because if he loses, everybody loses, and then they're on the hook to pay for all the legal it's like a insanely a lot amount of money that he's taken this all the way to the edge. So we'll see what happens here. If he loses, it's going to be a huge financial hit.
So where does that leave things? A prince who stepped away from royal life, partly blaming press intrusion, then spent years and massive amounts of money fighting that same press in court, built an entire global image around being a victim of media treatment, testified under oath that he had no personal relationships with journalists, and is now facing evidence showing he called one of them sugar, talked about movie snuggles, and exchanged a long stream of warm, personal messages over months. And now everything comes down to what happens next. Because this isn't just about one trial anymore. It's about reputation, public trust, and how this whole story is going to stick moving forward. The court will make its decision, sure, but outside that courtroom, people are already forming their own conclusions, and those don't get overturned by a judge. For Harry, this moment hits hard, not just legally, but personally and publicly. The image he spent years building is now being questioned from every angle. And for Meghan, reports suggest this is exactly the kind of situation she wanted to avoid. Instead of moving forward and focusing on new ventures, this has pulled everything right back into the spotlight they were trying to escape.
I'm so embarrassed if I'm the Sussexes, primarily Harry, because we've heard in the past through one of their favorite outlets, People magazine, that Meghan hates this litigation. Meghan wants to move on and she wants to focus on the future, and she feels like Prince Harry's stuck in the past. Here's a perfect example of that. Harry has these flirtatious conversations with a reporter, completely forgets about them because, you know, they say pot smoking makes your memory bad, allegedly, and someone has said that he loves a good marijuana puff here and there, allegedly.
And here's the bigger issue that's now impossible to ignore. When your entire message is about truth, accountability, and calling out wrongdoing, every detail matters. Every statement gets examined. Every inconsistency stands out. This trial didn't just challenge a newspaper. It ended up putting Harry's own narrative under a microscope. And now, whether people believe him or not, that's the part no legal ruling can fully control. And this is where the long-term fallout really starts to take shape. Because moments like this don't just disappear after the headlines fade. They stick, they get replayed, and they become part of the bigger story people tell about you. For Harry, every future interview, every new project, every public statement is now going to be viewed through this lens. People are going to remember the courtroom claims and the messages that didn't match. That kind of doubt doesn't go away easily. And for the media, this flips the dynamic in a big way. The same outlets that were being challenged are now sitting on a story that raises serious questions about the person who brought the case.
I think he feels so entitled with his life that he can just say and do whatever he wants without any, repercussions. And he just comes off as somebody who is spoiled, entitled, and doesn't really look at what is happening in the world in which we all live. It's an alternate universe for him. And this is what is getting him in trouble. This man has done some things with his drug taking that have seriously damaged his brain cells.
That changes the power balance. It also puts pressure on every next move, because anything said from here on out will be compared, analyzed, and picked apart in real time. No room for loose details. No space for contradictions. And that's the real twist in all of this. What started as an attempt to hold the press accountable has turned into a situation where Harry himself is facing a level of scrutiny that's just as intense and maybe even harder to control. Meghan reportedly wanted all of this to stop a long time ago. And looking at how this played out, that warning hits a lot harder now. Somewhere in Montecito, this whole situation is likely landing as more than just headlines. It's personal, it's public, and it's impossible to ignore. Now everything shifts to what comes next. What happens when the judge finally rules? What if questions around perjury actually move forward into something bigger? And how does a couple respond when the story they've been telling the world starts clashing, loudly and publicly, with what the evidence is showing? That's the part no one can predict yet. One thing is clear though, this situation isn't fading anytime soon, it's still unfolding, and every new detail could shift the narrative all over again. So stay locked in. Make sure you like, subscribe, share, and drop a comment with your thoughts, because this story is far from over, and we're going to be tracking every twist as it happens.